similarly did not surpass that number. So basically, it seems like the league came back to them, changed some other things that I feel like are things that could be easily negotiated. We've talked about it in previous episodes. They changed some of those things and they maybe budged like 1% on the revenue split. And what we've been hearing from all the players is if they do not budge on the revenue split, like that's all that they're focused on, and the players are also not going to budge. So we're getting to the point where one of them is either going to concede.
Similarly, did not surpass that number. So basically, it seems like the league came back to them, changed some other things that I feel like are things that could be easily negotiated. We have talked about it in previous episodes. They changed some of those things, and they maybe budged like 1% on the revenue split. And what we have been hearing from all the players is if they do not budge on the revenue split, like that is all that they are focused on, and the players are also not going to budge. So we are getting to the point where one of them is either going to concede or they are going to strike or lock out because they are just calling one another's bluff. Basically, the players are saying we are not budging until you give us this gross revenue split of 30%. The league is offering a net revenue split of 70%. And the league took 6 weeks to respond to this, and it does not seem like they changed too much. And Alexa Philippou tweeted about the changes to housing, and the WNBA's latest proposal included some concessions on housing. 1-bedrooms would be available for players on their applicable minimum salary.
Or they're going to strike or lock out because they're just calling one another's bluff. Basically, the players are saying, we're not budging until you give us this gross revenue split of 30%. The league is offering a net revenue split of 70%. And the league took 6 weeks to respond to this. And it doesn't seem like they changed too much. And Alexa Philippou tweeted about the changes to housing. And the WNBA's latest proposal included some concessions on housing. 1-bedrooms would be available for players on their applicable minimum salary, and with 0 years of service, 2026 to 2028 only. Developmental players would get studio.
And with 0 years of service, 2026 to 2028, only developmental players would get studio apartments. No significant updates on revenue share. I feel like I have said about housing, I'm tired of hearing about housing. You know, when they talk about housing, they're trying to distract you. I feel like this is a distraction. This is not the issue. If the league came, I guarantee you guys, if the league came back and they were like, sure, we'll give you 30% of gross revenue, you got to get your own housing. The players would be like, fine, and would sign it. You know what I mean? This is nothing. It bothers me. It bothers me that it is such a point of contention because they will figure that part out. That is something that will be figured out. And this is where it gets problematic. Because we are now in mid-February, and according to every report up until this point, if a deal was not done by the first or second week of February, the season would be delayed. Well, it is the second week of February. There is no deal, and more importantly, there is no expansion draft framework.
Apartments, no significant updates on rev share. I feel like I've said about housing, I'm tired of hearing about housing. You know, when they talk about they're trying to distract you, I feel like this is a distraction. This is not the issue. If the league came, I guarantee you guys, if the league came back and they were like, sure, we'll give you 30% of gross revenue, you got to get your own housing, the players would be like, fine, and would sign it. You know what I mean? This is nothing. It bothers me. It bothers me that it's such a point of contention because they will figure that part out. That is something that will be figured.
Sports Business Journal broke the story first. The WNBPA had requested 30% of league and team revenue with a $10 million plus salary cap. The league's response? They budged maybe 1% on the revenue split and threw in some concessions about 1-bedroom apartments for minimum salary players. That is it. That is what took them 6 weeks to come up with. Here is what is actually happening. The league is offering a net revenue split of 70%. The players want a gross revenue split of 30%. Those are not even the same calculation methods. Net revenue means the league deducts all their expenses first, then splits what is left. Gross revenue means you split the total money coming in before expenses. It is comparing apples to oranges, and the league knows it. The players have been crystal clear from day one. If the revenue split does not move significantly, nothing else matters.
not housing, not facility standards, not travel accommodations.
Sports forever. Today, the WNBPA is ready to strike for the first time, demanding to be paid what they're worth. Now, the WNBA did not create this video. This is from On the Line account, but they did collaborate with them on Instagram. And I feel like this is something that we probably shouldn't ignore, because when these rumors about a strike, I feel like are getting more real by the day. But I do want to show you guys a little bit of this video.
Sometimes timing is everything in a strike, and it's hard to imagine a more perfectly timed one than the 1964 NBA All-Star strike that forced union recognition and changed professional sports forever. Today, NBA superstars are some of the most highly paid, respected, and influential athletes in the world. But rewind just a few decades.
Those are all negotiable once the money gets sorted out, but the league keeps coming back with proposals that tinker around the edges while refusing to address the core issue. Annie Costable reported something crucial in our recent conversation. Nobody knows the rules for the expansion draft yet. The Golden State Valkyries and Toronto franchises are supposed to be building rosters, but they do not know which players they can select. They do not know the protection rules. They cannot even properly scout overseas talent because they have no idea what holes they will need to fill from the WNBA player pool. Sports Illustrated reported today the WNBPA is ready to strike for the first time, demanding to be paid what they are worth. Now, the WNBA did not create this video. This is from On the Line account, but they did collaborate with them on Instagram. And I feel like this is something that we probably should not ignore, because when these rumors about a strike are getting more real by the day.
In the 1950s and early 60s, the NBA was a struggling upstart. Players traveled on cramped buses, stayed in cheap motels, received next to nothing per diems, and played brutal back-to-back schedules with no off-season protections. They had no collective bargaining, no guarantees, and no real rights.
I'm going to stop it right here. It goes into more about the history of the NBA. It is actually an interesting video, but I don't think that this is a fair comparison to what the WNBA players are dealing with at this moment in time in 2026. I will also say
This is not about negotiations anymore. This is about the structural integrity of the product on the floor. Free agency is going to be compressed into whatever time remains once this CBA gets signed. Annie mentioned that players are likely going to take one-year deals again because the market is going to be rushed and there is going to be significantly more money on the table in the following season. Think about what that means. Teams will not have time to properly evaluate fit. Players will not have time to consider all their options. The expansion teams are going to be thrown together with whatever they can grab in a chaotic scramble, and all of this is happening during the biggest growth period in WNBA history, coming off a season where Caitlin Clark brought unprecedented attention to the league. The timing could not be worse. You have got casual fans who tuned in last year because of Clark, because of Angel Reese, because of the rookie class drama. They are waiting to see what happens next season.
the strike that the NBA players did in 1964, it said that they did this strike minutes before the All-Star game started. If the WNBA players strike now, they're not doing much besides stopping the conversations between both sides and also making it so players don't have a place to train. Like even when we just showed those photos of Caitlin Clark and her new Kobe PEs, like she's training at the Indiana Fever's practice facility. There are players who are still using their franchise's practice facilities, the practice facilities of the WNBA. And so if the players strike, it stops all of that. There is no season that is happening right now to where they're just not going to play in game. So I actually don't know how much of an impact a strike would cause. Like, I think it would definitely put pressure.
And instead of capitalizing on that momentum with a well-organized expansion and free agency period, we are headed toward a rushed, messy process that could result in inferior basketball. Now, there is serious talk about a strike. The WNBPA posted a video on Instagram 5 days ago about the 1964 NBA All-Star strike. The caption read, "In 1964, the top players in the NBA struck the All-Star game minutes before it aired. winning union recognition and changing pro sports forever. Today, the WNBPA is ready to strike for the first time, demanding to be paid what they are worth. That is not subtle, that is a direct signal. And the video was not even created by the WNBPA. It was made by an account called On the Line, but the Players Association collaborated with them on Instagram. You do not post that kind of content unless you are preparing your membership for what might come next. The strike that the NBA players did in 1964, it said that they did this strike minutes before the All-Star game started.
There are going to be certain owners who don't want to pay certain players maybe what their actual value is on the court if they are worried about their health or they are worried about them playing basketball all year round. Another player who just got injured is Aari McDonald. She is ruled out for the remainder of the season due to a right lower extremity injury. Annie Costabile reported this, and she said in August, McDonald was ruled out the remainder of the 2025 WNBA season after suffering a broken bone in her right foot. And this is someone for the Indiana Fever. A lot of fans were calling for Aari McDonald to be back on the Fever, and yeah.
If the WNBA players strike now, they are not doing much besides stopping the conversations between both sides, and also making it so players do not have a place to train. Like even when we just showed those photos of Caitlin Clark in her new Kobe PEs, like she is training at the Indiana Fever practice facility. There are players who are still using their franchise's practice facilities, the practice facilities of the WNBA. And so, if the players strike, it stops all of that. There is no season that is happening right now, so that is what makes this different. I will also say the strike that the NBA players did in 1964, I do not think that this is a fair comparison to what the WNBA players are dealing with at this moment in time in 2026. So here is where we actually are. The league and players are in a standoff over revenue splits, using completely different calculation methods that make compromise nearly impossible. The season is almost certainly delayed at this point, even if nobody wants to officially say it yet. The expansion draft is in limbo because the CBA determines protection rules and roster construction. Free agency is going to be compressed and chaotic whenever it finally happens. And players are posting 1964 NBA strike content on social media, while the league takes 6 weeks to come back with proposals that change almost nothing. One side is going to have to blink. Either the league moves significantly on that revenue split, or the players accept something closer to what is currently on the table. Or we are looking at a prolonged work stoppage, and every day this drags on, the product suffers. Not because of the negotiations themselves, but because of everything that cannot happen while they're stuck. The expansion teams cannot build their front offices properly. They cannot scout effectively. They cannot make long-term plans. The existing teams cannot prepare for free agency. Players cannot make informed decisions about their futures. Coaches cannot install systems. And fans, the casual fans who just discovered this league last year, they are watching all of this and wondering if it is worth staying invested. That is the real cost here. Not the delayed start date, not the compressed free agency period. The cost is momentum. The WNBA spent decades trying to break through to mainstream consciousness, and last year it finally happened. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, the rookie class drama, the playoff intensity, the record ratings, everything aligned. And now, in the moment when they should be capitalizing on that breakthrough, they are stuck in a negotiation where both sides seem more committed to their positions than to preserving what they built. The housing thing is a distraction. I am tired of hearing about one-bedroom versus studio apartments. If the league came back tomorrow and offered 30% of gross revenue, but said players have to find their own housing, the players would sign immediately. That is not what this is about. This is about whether the players are going to get a legitimate share of the revenue they are generating, or whether the league is going to keep them on the same basic structure they have had for years, with minor adjustments. And look, I understand both sides have valid points. The league is probably not lying when they say the financials are complicated and they need to protect against future uncertainty. The players are not wrong when they say they deserve more of the money their labor creates. But at some point, you have to make a deal. At some point, you have to decide that getting the season started and maintaining momentum is more important than winning every single point in the negotiation. Because here's what happens if this drags into March or April. The season either gets canceled entirely, which would be catastrophic, or it gets shortened significantly. A shortened season means fewer games for the expansion teams to develop their rosters. It means less time for Caitlin Clark to build on her rookie year. It means fewer opportunities for the league to convert casual fans into committed fans. It means less inventory to sell to broadcasters and sponsors. And if you're thinking the league will not let it get that far because they need the revenue too, remember that the WNBA has survived for decades without being profitable. The NBA subsidizes it. The owners can absorb a lost season if they think it positions them better long-term. The players cannot. The players have maybe a 10-year window to maximize their earnings. They cannot give away a full season of prime earning years. That is why the 1964 comparison doesn't really work. Those NBA players had leverage because they were about to play a game on television. These WNBA players have leverage because the league needs them to play eventually, but eventually is doing a lot of work in that sentence.
The league can wait longer than the players can, especially the players in their prime years right now. So what is the path forward? Realistically, someone has to move. The league needs to come up significantly on that revenue split, not in terms of net versus gross accounting tricks, but in terms of actual dollars that end up in player pockets. The players probably need to accept that 30% of gross revenue is not happening in this CBA, but they should be able to get something in the low 20s that represents real growth. And then both sides need to fast-track everything else: expansion draft rules, free agency timeline, facility standards, travel accommodations, all of it. Because every day they spend arguing over details is another day the expansion teams cannot build properly. Another day teams cannot plan for free agency. Another day fans are wondering if there's going to be a season. The product on the floor is what matters most, not the CBA terms, not the revenue splits, not the housing provisions, the product. If the basketball is good, if the rosters are well constructed, if the games are competitive, fans will watch, sponsors will pay, broadcasters will bid, revenue will grow. But if this negotiation results in a rushed expansion draft, a chaotic free agency period, poorly constructed rosters, and inferior basketball, all the revenue sharing in the world will not matter, because there will not be enough revenue to share. That is what I keep coming back to. Both sides seem so focused on winning the negotiation that they are losing sight of what actually creates value. Caitlin Clark's signature shoe still has not been released. Nike announced before the Super Bowl they would not be running ads, which disappointed fans who thought maybe we would finally see her shoe debut. Instead, we got another Kobe colorway. The league had this massive opportunity to capitalize on her popularity, to turn casual fans into committed customers, and instead, everything is frozen while lawyers argue over accounting methods. So here's my question for you, and I want you to really think about this before you answer in the comments. If you were advising the Players Association right now, what would you tell them to do? Would you tell them to hold firm on 30% of gross revenue, even if it means potentially losing the season? Would you tell them to accept something in the mid-teens and get the season started? Would you tell them to strike now to create pressure? Or would you tell them to keep negotiating but set a hard deadline? Because there is no obviously right answer here. Every option has serious downsides, but doing nothing, continuing the standoff indefinitely, that has got the worst downsides of all. Let me know what you think in the comments, and if you found this breakdown valuable, hit that subscribe button because we're going to be covering every development in this situation as it unfolds. 6 weeks. The WNBA Players Association waited 6 full weeks for a response to their demand for 30% of gross revenue. And when the league finally came back with their counterproposal last Friday night, they offered essentially nothing. Same revenue split they've been pushing all along, less than 15%, just some minor adjustments to housing provisions that frankly nobody has been fighting about. The WNBPA had requested 30% of league and team revenue with a $10 million plus salary cap. The league's response? They budged maybe 1% on the revenue split and threw in some concessions about one-bedroom apartments for minimum salary players. That's it. That is what they took 6 weeks to come up with. Or they're going to strike or lock out because they're just calling one another's bluff. And that's the truth, whether anybody in the WNBA or the Players Association wants to admit it or not. We are staring down a potential lost season, and nobody is blinking yet. And the clock is ticking louder every single day.